So somebody asked me a question about my PC build video and the cost calculation I've been using. The PlayStation 5, PS Plus, the extra cost of games. I've made videos that actually broke down some of these different costs. And I think it's very important and interesting to see that for about 600 and something dollars, you can build a PC that beats the PlayStation 5, especially when you consider the extra cost of games. There's about $10 to $20 difference in some cases with the cost of PlayStation games or Xbox games at launch compared to PC. So in 4 years, if you continue to run a console like this, you would have spent about $840 if you were buying 4 games a year in the most conservative sense. You could spend at least up to $1,000 by this point. So this question came from, this user here. I'm at TSN. Shout out to you. I just wanted to highlight your question because I thought it was very interesting and important that we actually look at this. So they said, okay, let's calculate this. If I bought the digital edition at launch for $400 and subscribed for annual PlayStation Plus for 5 years, which is about 64 times 5, I would still be spending about $725 in 2020. In 2020, you couldn't actually build a PC with $725 that could compete with the PlayStation 5. Now you can, but not then. And after 5-year mark, the PC will start saving you money, but 2 years after the PS6 drops, we start all over again. Ahmed, that's a very good question. But here is where I think something is very pertinent that must be highlighted. You see, in this whole conversation, for the most part, those of us who have been in PC gaming for a long time, we just never really bothered to tell many people to come to console because I tried telling my friends in my inner circle. Many of them were like, no. Some of them had gaming PCs and they wanted to play on console. So I really understand a lot of people's position on this matter. However, some people reached out to me a few months ago, and that's one of the reasons I've been making these videos. I could be making Gotham Knights videos. You guys know me. Those of you who watch my videos long enough, I would sit here and make Gotham Knights videos all day or Batman Arkham videos without any problem. However, it's important that we pay very close attention to this particular set of concerns. Now, let's look at what was the case in point and a fuller context as of 2019. In 2019, all you needed to do was build a PC that beat the PS4 and Xbox One. That was it. So if you were a PC gamer at that time and you wanted to play at 60 FPS, all you did was you owned a console that was just better, that could do the job for you. Now, when I first built my own official gaming PC, I built the Bozon 3.0, which is an Austin Evans special. Austin Evans is a technology YouTuber, and this was a video he made 8 years ago. That's when I actually built my own PC. I built it in October of the same year. So I bought basically all of the same parts, and this build was $350. When the PlayStation 4 launched, it was actually $399. So even if you were getting the PlayStation 4 at a discount, I think I eventually paid about $300-ish for my PS4. I did buy a PS4 like a year or two after launch, right? And so when I decided I was going to get myself a gaming PC, I went ahead and I built this exact same PC, and it could play according to the metrics. And if you look at actually what Austin Evans was able to pretty much put out here with the different, metrics, you could play games at the time. Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor was one of the highlights. You could play for over 60 FPS at the time. A game like GTA 5, I think at that time, you could play for about 40-something FPS. You could also play The Witcher for 32 FPS. Woohoo! Well, that's what everybody was playing it. But I think if you think about it, it did not necessarily talk about resolution because back in the PlayStation 4 days, resolution was like 720 in most cases. On PC at that time, you could play at 1080p without any problems. In fact, if you look at, say, different things like 3D Fire Strike, which were back in the day comparisons that you could use for your hardware acceleration, speed, and power. So this was a build at that same time in that, same, window where people were looking at, okay, what are we trying to do in terms of gaming PCs and in terms of building something? And so you could trade your PlayStation 4 at the time, and you could basically build this particular computer very easily. So the context of 2013, 2014, 15, 16 being the time where PC building started to explode with Bitcoin mining and people wanting 60 FPS, I think that's where one place that you need to look at in terms of your first context. Austin Evans also went ahead to make a video basically providing all of the parts, showing you exactly what to do. I bought all of these parts when I wanted to build my PC. However, something happened. When it came time for me to build a PC that I actually wanted, that PC was not sufficient to play the game that I wanted to play at 60 FPS, which was Tom Clancy's The Division 1. This was the 2016 release of the game. This build that Austin Evans put together was not able to do. It wasn't able to get the job done. So in order for me to be able to get 60 FPS, I had to go ahead and change my build by spending, I think, an extra $150 or so. I bought myself an Intel i5 6500, and I got myself an RX 480. That was a $200 graphics card at the time. So I basically took this build apart, sent everything back to Amazon, and then not everything. I just shipped the motherboard and the motherboard, CPU, and the GPU back, and then I came back with the DDR4. I think I shipped the RAM back because I need DDR4. So if you were trying to upgrade at 2020, say from your PlayStation 4 to your PlayStation 5, you would have had to be trading in your console to be able to get the new PS5, right? Well, you would have done the same thing with your PC. You would have been able to go back and trade your CPU and your GPU, and you would have been able to simply be able to just upgrade in order for you to be able to get the new components that could give you 60 FPS in games. And even still, if you are still using, say, the same build that I used, the i5 6500, and maybe say you went up a GPU by like the 1070, which at that time 1070s were very cheap, you could run every game at 60 FPS with a 1070 at the time that the PlayStation 5 was coming out. You could run basically everything at 1080p with 60 FPS or even more. In fact, if you want, we can go and look at games at that time. Let's go to Steam. Let's look at the Arkham games. These were some of the games that were actually really solid at the time, and we can actually look at their PC specs. That's another way that we can actually go back, because history is history. We don't want to rewrite history out here. We want to look at what exactly is going on. So in Arkham Knight, a game like Arkham Knight, which was a 2015 PlayStation 4 game, right? We could look at every PlayStation 4 game at the time that was actually top notch, and we could look at their minimum requirements. We could look at their recommended requirements, and a GTX 1070 at the time was better than a 760. It was better than an HD, 7950. If you were using, say, an i5 5600, it was, in a sense, going to work just as well as an i7 3770, and you could basically knock out 60 FPS. How do I know? I actually played the Arkham games right immediately after I built my build. Already I was a Batman fan. I basically got Arkham City, Arkham Knight, and Arkham Origins immediately, and I just started playing them at better frame rates because I'd enjoyed those games and I wanted to play them again. Whichever game you want to go ahead at, for me anyways, at the time, I was playing the Arkham games, I was playing The Division. Those were basically the two games that I was playing. So as much as this is a really good question to be able to go ahead and see this, you have to understand that for the most part, there's just a kind of a hardware change in terms of how both of them have always operated. Now, the talk about 4K and all of that stuff, you have to also realize that even some of these games, you could run 4K at the time, by the time you got your GPU up to like a GTX 1070. And believe it or not, the GTX 1070 was a very, very affordable, GPU. GTX 1070 price at launch, I think it was something like $300. Yeah, it was about $379 at launch. Basically at some point it went up, but you get it for $307. Now, you didn't even need the GTX 1070. You could actually get the 980, which was also a GPU that was which I actually did have a 980. Man, I've been nerding out on this stuff for a minute. You could get the 980, which was actually quite high, but I was able to get myself a really good one used for, almost, I think I got one for $200. It was broken, but it was under warranty. You got to buy the ones that are under warranty, and you can check. You look at the serial number, go on the website. EVGA sent me a replacement for no cost at all. I just had to put that one in the mail. I think I spent $40 on that shipping. I did almost next day shipping. I was like, you guys got to tell me you're holding that GPU. And they sent me another GTX 980. I think it was a 980 or a 980 Ti. I can't remember. But already the PC market was vibrant. A lot of the different, in that time anyways, a lot of different components were readily available. You could pretty much, just buy some really good stuff that will give you a lot of performance. it's when the talk about 4K started to come into light that we started to look very carefully and realize that a lot of the 4K that's, being done on console, a lot of it is basically upscaling, because, upscaling technologies had always been a thing, and they could leverage it now on the consoles. But at the end of the day, you were still having a really good experience, and you didn't even still have to spend console money, saving money on games every year, not spending any money on PlayStation Plus, of which, trust me, this PlayStation Plus thing is not a flex. Sony and Microsoft should not be charging users to play their games on the internet. As much as I would say all of what I'm saying, I think this is a consumer, disservice more than anything else. So this was a really good question. It really allowed for me to go back and kind of think a little bit about, okay, what were the circumstances at the time? And very easily, you would have seen that, at that time, 2019, DDR4 was still a thing. So if you had a DDR4 system at the time that the PlayStation, 4 was transitioning to the PlayStation 5, you had no need to make any moves. GPU prices had actually been cheap around 2016, 2017. You had a GPU that could run everything at 1080 for you. You weren't concerned about, 1440 and 4K gaming. That's a technology trend that came at the heels of the RTX, series. That's what NVIDIA and AMD were fighting for. But know that in the PC world, if you're doing 1440 and 4K, you act accordingly, because most of the time you're running them native. And so you have to go buy monitors and displays that are actually built for those, so you're not just necessarily going to just throw it on your 4K TV at this point. Most enthusiasts will want to get the 4K monitor and all of that stuff. But for many, the 1080 is just fine. 1080 gaming is perfectly fine. You could do high refresh rate 1080 gaming for very, very cheap. You can do 1440 these days, but it's around $200 and something. All right, that's it for me. Thanks so much for watching the video. I appreciate you guys' time and audience, and let me know if you guys have any other questions. I really appreciate the conversation. Peace out.